Where history's shadows cast long, unsettling doubts, the truth lies buried. From cryptic wartime codes to assassinations that scarred generations, unearth the secrets the world tried to forget. Host Tim Gardner guides you through a labyrinth of unanswered questions where every clue pulses with danger and intrigue, and perhaps an opinion or two. It's not all facts because history never is. Welcome to the Ciphered Past.
Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Ciphered Past. I am your host, Tim Gardner, and this episode is titled Solving JFK. My guest today is an attorney, a podcaster, a co-author of JFK Assassination Chokeholds, and creator of Solving JFK, a long-form investigative series that applies legal standards of evidence to one of the most debated crimes in American history. With each episode, Matt Crumpton cross-examines the witnesses, the documents, and even the government itself, asking the hardest questions of all. What actually holds up in court and in history? Matt, welcome to the show. It's great to have you, my friend.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's kick the show off. We recently saw the KGB files being released a couple weeks ago, referencing Oswald and the U.S. intelligence. Do you think these documents truly clarify anything or just add another layer of confusion? The current government task force is supposed to deliver its final determination soon. And from your perspective, what do you think the outcome is going to be? Genuine transparency, or do you think it's going to be another controlled release? And just your thoughts in general about how the task force has been doing so far.
I would say that the two out of three ain't bad, so I'll take the last two. Another level of information and added confusion, I think. I mean, look, it's good to see it. Obviously, this is, I think it's you'd rather see something than not see something, so that's a positive development. Um, you know, uh, a lot of this information was previously provided. I understand. I'll be honest with you. I haven't read the whole thing. I've read bits and pieces of it that have been translated. I will do a deep dive on this exact issue when I get to the Soviet Union as a potential culprit. So I'm kind of saving it for that. But as far as I know, there haven't been any earth-shattering revelations in that. And of course, it's hard to separate this from the current geopolitical moment when Russia is a foe, and it's kind of like, oh, really? You're going to believe that? They're the sort of the bad guys are handing you this information. What's the reason for it? So, um, I think there's a lot of grains of salt that need to be taken, and I guess we'll figure it out once more people have had a chance to digest it. But I was some smart folks that I follow on X uh, kind of have said that there's nothing in it, but I haven't looked myself yet.
So, the one thing for me, when I pay attention to what has been going on lately in regards to um, the law. I'm not big on the law. I don't know too much about what's going on with the National Archives versus the Mary Farrell Foundation versus camps that are on one side versus camps that are on the other. I know that Mark Adamczyk and Andrew Eiler are incredibly insightful when it comes to laws and the JFK Act, and I've been able to gain valuable knowledge from them. I've also been able to gain valuable knowledge on the other side. Um, so my question is, what are your thoughts on records released that are not going to the National Archives? And then secondly, I think another question is, what do you I alluded to this earlier. I don't think we got to it on the first question, but your thoughts on the task force. It's just about like, for people that are out there that don't understand what the task force is. It's not the church committee. It's not, you know, the House Assassination Committee as well. I just wanted to get your take on the grand scheme of that as well.
Okay, so on matters of law related to the JFK Records Act, I am an attorney by trade. My two co-authors, who you mentioned, Mark Adamczyk and Andrew Eiler, who I've become pretty good friends with, uh, that's who I think is right in this legal debate going back and forth. I think Andrew and Mark are the clear experts on this. And look, it just comes down to, at the end of the day, uh, I don't know why the arguments are coming from the other side, but probably because when someone's criticizing something you've done, people tend to be defensive about that. So that's but on the law, Andrew Eiler and Mark Adamczyk are not going to steer you wrong. I'll tell you that. Plus, I mean, I've had several episodes with Eiler on in particular where we go through the statute point by point on some of these disputed issues. I mean, it's people love those episodes. I've gotten dozens of views, but almost one time. But at any rate, uh, so that's the JFK Records Act. On the whole thing that's going on right now, the committee. Um, First of all, it's a committee to declassify government secrets. Like, how broad is that? And there's so many. Remember all the things they're trying to tackle. It's like six or seven things. So I think it's a broad uh, committee to start out with. So to me, like, do I have criticisms of it? Would I have done things differently in some ways? Yes, in some ways, but I do think that, like, really what we're comparing it to is what would have happened. What's the status quo been? And the last time there was a federal government investigation or discussion into the JFK assassination was, when the ARRB disbanded. So uh, I think it's good that it's been top of mind. I think it. I think the Morley DiEugenio Stone hearing was fine. I think the Doug Horn in particular was probably surprising to people, and also what's the guy's name? The Mexico City guy who wrote the report. He went down to Mexico City. What's his name? He testified. Uh, it's two guys wrote the report on Mexico City for the HSC. Yeah, yeah, no, I can't think of the guy's name. Anyway, I'm sure it'll come back up later. But uh, at any rate, like, I, so what's the committee being criticized about, right? So so, like, what are the critiques? And I think they are, and you can tell me if there's more. Um, the way the evidence, the way some of these specific files that have come out, it seems like it should have come out through a proper process, but instead it's kind of been like, give it to Jefferson Morley and then he gives it to the world type thing, right? Um, and so on that point, I would say, yeah, like, I think it would be better if it went through the archivist. But it's also true, to answer another one of your questions here. I'll just answer that now. The archivist is a disaster. It's a big problem. So the archive, the committee should call the archivist, or perhaps Congress at large should call the archivist, whatever. But because they're just blatantly not following the JFK Records Act. Now, so where's the committee going? All right, look, I think if they were to say, hey, we're going to have 3 more hearings on JFK, you would have all sorts of debates from everybody in the community about who should speak, right? And who's in and who's out, and it's like all this little small p politics. But I think the ultimate goal. So let's say there's no more hearings, and it's just like how are they going to use their power? The ultimate goal, what I understand it to be, is to recommend legislation or some sort of congressional action at large that will actually have the weight of law to either re-impanel the ARRB or create some other entity. And that's really sort of, in my understanding, that's the question mark right now. Like, is it just going to be, hey, this looks like a conspiracy, and we recommend these steps, and are those steps going to be, you know, we should, Congress should litigate under the JFK Records Act, which is what I think they should do. I think because the Trump order, and again, we have to compare to what we had, and what we had before was nothing. And this was a substantive declassification. This is all true. So it's like there's caveats, and it's politics, so it's kind of a mind. Um, but the Trump order was so vague as to be meaningless. So it did affect releases, yes, and that's good. And there's some stuff that's come out, but there's more than 1,000 documents, not pages, more than 1,000 documents that are still classified in some regard. And there's no timetable for any of those. All those FBI documents that were found, the 2,000 FBI documents that they brought over to the CIA around the time of the announcement, I don't know what's going on with those. So, but I will tell you, in my understanding, and talking to folks with the committee, I talked to Jake Greenberg, I talked to folks who were close to Luna, and my understanding is they want full disclosure, and that's what they're going for. They don't have the power to actually do it, but I don't think they're going to issue a final report that says like it was, Bernard Barker on the grassy knoll or whatever. I think they're hopefully going to recommend some sort of practical legal or legislative step that can lead to tangible disclosure. So is it real? Is it fake? Or are they really trying to help? Is it just going to be a rug pull? I guess we're going to have to see. But my sense is that there's no reason to have gone this far and not go farther. Why even bring it up? Unless it's just an epic psyop.
Well, let's hope not, man. I mean, like, it's only been 62 years, right? So, no, I mean, like, we seem to be in a position where the powers that be that are operating on this right now are kind of at a standstill. Now, if you were running the show, would you do anything differently? And if you were, how would you go about approaching this in a way where we can get the results that we want?
I would go topic by topic, right? But I would, what I'm about to say now, I would apply it to the other ones too. But for JFK, step one is we got to get all the information. We can't assess what the heck happened until we get the stuff that's still behind closed doors. Okay, because as long as that's there, there's always going to be people going, why is that hidden? For good reason. They should ask that. That's a good question to ask. So step one is they've got to actually make the JFK Records Act have teeth and actually do the thing that's already been passed. It's already our government's supposed to work, and this is a sign that it just doesn't work. It's just impotent, doesn't work. So that's step one. Step two, and whatever that means, maybe it's re-impaneling the ARRB for another 4 years, ARRB Part 2, whatever. And then what I would like to see personally, and I'm certainly not speaking for anybody else in the community, but like, look, even after all the docs are out, everyone's still, there's still going to be a lot of folks who think Oswald did it alone. There's still going to be little factions within the research community. So what I would like to see, just to see the government tie a bow on it, it's just like as a citizen, because remember, we got Warren Report. Oswald did it alone. We got the HSCA. All this contradictory information, but the final thing is Oswald did it alone. But then there was a random guy from the front, and it was probably the mafia. Okay, like that's the right. That's the HSCA, and then the ARRB is hey, the Secret Service burned all their files, and all these people came back in and said all these contradictory things from before, and that's where we are. That's currently, like, if you were to write textbooks in an intellectually honest way, that's what you would say where we are, right? You'd say it's kind of an open question. Here's where we are according to the official government results. So just to tie a bow on it, I would love to see hearings, basically like a big, not a mock trial, but like a debate on sub issues. I would do one, like give me like 3 days. I would do the first day would just be like 6 or 7 debates between like lone nutters and conspiracy folks, just going at the main topics. Okay. And then we say, lone nutters, you're welcome to stick around, but we're now going to move on to the rest of the case for those of us who understand that 43 witnesses saw a big hole in the back of his head. All right. So and then you have the same thing. You kind of have like the best of each topic debate each other, and have it go like respectfully, and provide documents and attachments. It can't just be like, oh, I heard a guy say, right? They got to provide the info, and then have all that go into the congressional record, and then have write a final report. Well, the arguments they basically, which is basically what I'm trying to do, but I'm just saying they should do that power of law and do it in the congressional record, and then tie a bow on it and say, here's our, because they're never going to be like it was a conspiracy, but they're going to be like, it looks bad. Maybe we should roll this back a little bit. At least, like, they would say something that would not, just given with all the information that is out, it would not allow the corporate press to simply go, you see, no problem.
Now, Matt, with these files in general, to look at everything, there seems to be a lot of impatience, whether it be with the William Harvey files, whether it be with the Joe Anidis files not being in the National Archive. And I know I've kind of retreaded this question quite a bit, but I think at the end of the day, why is there still a form of secrecy? To me, it just seems like with Trump signing the order back in March, that we were supposed to get full transparency with everything. And to me, it just seems like, again, like with what we're looking at, we really haven't been delivered that. There's rumors out there of the Manchester files and other files that are out there that we're supposed to get. Now they're not supposed to be smoking guns. I get that. But I think at the same time, it's just really interesting because here we are, and right now we're almost at the Lancer conference, and we're almost, in the holiday season. We actually are in the holiday season pretty much now. And so we have Morley's final determination coming up, and I'm just interested in what's your thoughts on the secrecy of all this?
Yeah. Well, it just makes me think back to the story of Otto Otepka, and there was a document. I forget what the exact document was, but it kept getting destroyed, and the answer kept being administrative error, and it's kind of like, you can pretend to be stupid, and people are like, look, it's not nefarious, they're just dumb, or like, look, they're overworked, like you said, like to your point, they're understaffed and overworked, and like, oh, hey, it's hard. But the reality is, the JFK, for something so important, the JFK Records Act it's beyond a mess. It's There's no system to even know when things were ordered to be declassified and when they should come up again for review, because no one knows where the final determination forms are. And it's just, you can't tell where anything is. They, if they think that you're doing anything that could make them look bad, they shut you down. I mean, my guys had Eiler and Crudell and Paul Blow. They had a tough time at the archives. I mean, it wasn't until they were there for 3 or 4 days that they finally people finally started giving them what they approximately asked for. So, yeah.
So when I look at this, I talk to a lot of people in the community, and a lot of people are frustrated, and I think they're missing the grand scope of things right now. If you look at how we've kind of come pretty far this year, for as much criticism as Morley and Luna get, we tend to forget that we are a lot further than where we have been before. And especially, like back in the 90s when JFK was the film by Oliver was released. So my question to you is um, with the community's approach to this of being, quote unquote impatient, and I know it's been 62 years. Um, what is your take on their frustration towards um, the lack of, I would say, in their view, um, progress? Because to me, and you've seen me on X, I've actually voiced it myself. I've been frustrated, but I think if we take a step back, I think we need to actually look and see what's been accomplished this year.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And by the way, thanks for your support of my podcast. I appreciate you, Tim. And yeah, in terms of kind of how everybody's feeling about this, look, the reason people feel that way is because it's true. They're because well, I think perhaps some of that is from this idea that Trump put this order out that, hey, it's all going to be declassified, and then that has not been followed through with, candidly. And then I understand some people, for various reasons, don't. It may not be that they don't like Jefferson Morley, but they view him as like sort of the de facto representative of the community, and they're like, why does he get to be that? And I think the answer to that question is pretty practical. It's because he used to be a reporter for the Washington Post, and he lives in DC, and he knows all these people. It's really that. It's kind of that simple. Um, and look, yeah, I think the documents ought to go straight from the National Archives. I understand how that's a bad look, and people were going, "Oh, I got to sign up for this guy's Substack to get the document." Well, that wasn't actually true, but whatever. You're going to this guy's. You're basically, it's an advertisement. You have to whatever, go to the page. So I understand that in a non dysfunctional system, that would come through the archives, but this is beyond dysfunction. so for me, what Jefferson Morley did with Jane Roman, him and John Newman is legendary, and is like one of the really big deals in the case. I mean, he's part of talking to this high level CIA officer who admitted that the documents that she signed meant that there was a keen interest in Oswald with a need to know basis, shortly before. So I say, and he's also on record saying that he thinks there's a shooter from the front, right? So, you know, if Jefferson Morley is a limited hangout, it ain't that limited. Is hanging out pretty far, but but so look, I understand all of it, and the bottom line is what's going to happen, right? So is it going to be nothing? I don't know, but let me say this: the congressional committee can only do so much, right? So that's why, rather, well, here's what I don't want to see. Here's what would be frustrating to me, and I think would be a huge loss of the opportunity if they were to try to say what happened in the case definitively based on whatever information without also discussing some sort of mechanism for getting the rest of these records. I think that's to me will be the mark of what did they succeed um, ultimately. But the reality is, even if they do that, even if they put out this great legislation that's going to be a recommend and get the outline for ARRB 2.0 with like a little determination thing at the end, you still have to have Congress do that and a president sign it for it to become law, you know? So the other thing though is I would love to see them use the JFK Records Act because Congress doesn't have the standing issue that a lot of other people would have, and Congress has unique ability to get some things disclosed and to get things done. But I do it's hard to not also say that we live in a moment where the political party who seems to have the energy that cares about this topic is the Republicans, and they got a lot of other things going on that are kind of like not related to this, right? And so a lot of people who may go, "Oh, I'm really excited about these records releases," also may strongly disagree with the Republicans on a lot of other topics. So it's a bit of a weird time politically to get the political willpower to get the Democrats, who you would think would support this, to sign off on it because it's viewed as something that's sort of like a Republican thing, which isn't ideal. This used to be the biggest bipartisan issue, and it still is bipartisan. But kind of what I find from my audience is a lot of my older listeners tend to be Democrats, and my younger listeners tend to be like Republicans or non-political. So
Yeah, that's a good point. And it kind of leads me to believe, when I look at this case in general, it, you know, I've been guilty of saying that I believe that we're spinning our wheels and not actually, and this is more of a criticism towards myself. I tend to get passionate about things just like other people do. And, we want to end up seeing results because, we want to figure out what happened on November 22nd. I think most of us have a really good idea of what, transpired. We may not have names who shot the president. May have a pretty good idea. I mean, there's different camps that believe in organization of a coup, but it's interesting to me because, you know, which would segue to my next question to you is that as time goes on, and we're starting to see technology really evolve with everything, with AI, and again, it's just been unbelievable with their photo analyzers and different things that they keep coming out with. Um, it makes me more optimistic for my children's generation and their children's generation, and we hope it doesn't get down that far, Matt. But what I would like to say is that myself, I have a lot of faith in AI and technology going forward. It could be used in a bad way, obviously, with the cut of workforce and whatnot. But I do believe in something like this. It can be super beneficial because, again, I myself, I help design AI agents for my company, and and so that's why I'm so optimistic going forward because I do believe in a case like this where you're just putting the pieces together, Matt. I do believe that technology is on our side on this.
yeah, I think I mean certainly for things like photo analysis, I could see that, and then also for document review and looking at likelihoods of different issues. But I think it will be helpful, sure. But it's kind of like a garbage in, garbage out situation. You know what I mean? So if a lot of the most important documents were never committed to writing or were long ago destroyed, then AI wouldn't be able to give you the full picture. But certainly, maybe it could take that into consideration. And I think on these documents, we've a lot of the big secrets have sort of already been given away. They're out in the open. Like the routing of Oswald's file to the Office of Security when it should have gone to the Soviet Russia division first, and it went to the Office of Security. That's according to uh, Tenant Bagley, who the New York Times says is like the most epic counterintelligence officer against the Soviet Union of the Cold War. Well, he says that Oswald was a witting false defector based on all those documents and the routing of it. So a thing like routing, like what we would call metadata today, just like the little things on the document that says where it's been and where it's going, that actually tells us a lot after the fact. And so, there are these camps, but hopefully AI will help in one way or the other. Um, but yeah, it's just gotta look at all the more information, the better, I would say. Well, although that that may not be true because there's some information is disinformation. I'm not sure I gave you a good answer on that one.
No, I think you answered the questions loud and clear. I mean, I get it. Um, I think a lot of people that are out there that are watching this are still unclear about. Well, they're always going to be unclear with things, but I'm pessimist. I'm a pessimistic person by nature, so just wanted to get your thoughts quickly on the op-ed and see what you thought about it, how everything kind of transpired with it, and just love to hear your take on that.
I thought it was great. The op-ed was great. Um, my takeaway was, I agree. Let's get those documents. That was pretty much. Let me ask you this: what, aside from just wanting them to get the documents and you know be the best version of like our imagined political hero, which I want too, but like, what is it that if you could talk to Luna, what specifically would you tell her that your concerns are that you didn't like, and what would you say, like what would you ask her to do going forward?
I would have a lot to say to her. Just kind of even dig her brain a little bit. I know she's all over the board when it comes to like commitments and duties and stuff like that. But I would love to have her. I would just love to talk to her. You know, if you ever get a chance to talk to her at any particular time soon, I think we would love to give you feedback on what our questions would be with her.
I'm trying to get her on my show, so if I do, I will ask whatever questions you want me to ask, and I've presented it to her team that look, there's some folks who have some questions and some concerns. I'd love to share those with you so that you can address them. And I'm waiting to hear back and see if this is going to happen or not. We'll see.
So to pivot off that, so when you started doing this, it's interesting because I was a kid and I first saw JFK for the first time, and it absolutely just, I mean, I was blown away. I don't think I've ever been as blown away by a movie at that age. I was 13 years old. I date you a little bit, my friend, but yeah, I mean, I was so taken aback by the film and the wonderful acting by Donald Sutherland, Joe Pesci, and just the countless of others. What kind of impact did that film have on you and your trajectory to this whole thing?
A huge impact. But that Oliver Stone's film was a big deal for me. But the thing that even got me interested, because I was, you were 13, I was 10 when the movie came out in 1991. So I didn't see it at the theaters. I think I probably watched it maybe, in the mid 90s. But what I remember, how I became aware of it at all was uh, the there's a music video for "We Didn't Start the Fire," and Billy Joel's in the kitchen, and they got Jack Ruby shooting Oswald picture projected behind, and I was like, "What's that?" Because I loved Billy Joel. "We Didn't Start the Fire" as a kid. It's my favorite song. Like, so I'm like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Well, that's Jack Ruby. He's killing Oswald." I'm like, "Well, who's Oswald?" "Well, he's the one that they said killed the president." "Wait, how long after did Jack Ruby kill him?" They're like, "The same weekend." I was like, "Well, he probably didn't kill the president then." Like, I knew that. I can tell you that. I was like, "Has anyone looked into the fact that maybe he didn't?" They're like, "Yeah, actually, it's the whole thing. A lot of people think that he didn't." I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I watched the movie, and yeah, that was mind blowing, and different people have different perspectives on Jim Garrison, but I think it's better overall that the Jim Garrison investigation happened than didn't happen. It generated a lot of documents, and you know, uh, I'm not as against it as Fred Litwin, and I'm probably not as for it as Jim DiEugenio. How about that? I think ultimately Jim Garrison was a positive, but yeah, the whole precise thing. I'm not sure that he solved what happened, but he definitely interviewed a lot of witnesses and created a lot of information that we can use that's very helpful.
Looking at it in general, I mean, I feel like, even though, I mean, everybody has their own opinion about Jim Garrison. Was he off base? Did he look in the wrong directions? This or that. The fact that he got somebody to stand trial for the murder of the president is just, for me, at that time in the late 60s, when we're still under this whole like mockingbird, well, we still are at this particular time, in my opinion. Um, yes. And my thought in 1967, 68, 69, Matt, that took a lot of balls to do. A lot of balls. And, I think in general, because, I like the fact that the jury was like, hey, there was a conspiracy on this. I mean, more than likely was a conspiracy on this, which, again, the House assassination in the late 70s concluded it was more than likely there was a conspiracy as well. But I like the fact that he kept it going. And I do feel it is our responsibility right now because, here we are 62 years later. Regardless of what happens next month about the final disclosure, we still have to keep that trending like Garrison did. Garrison kind of paved the way, albeit, was it right? I mean, 100%? No. But I do believe we have to just keep this topic trending, because it's going to get, dissolved in history. And I know it won't fully be because it was a president. But right now, if you ask the average kid, my daughter is 15 years old. If I didn't put so much stock into like, this whole case, she wouldn't even care. She'd care more about her TikTok and whatnot. So,
Right. Well, I mean, the biggest issue on that is people don't know why it matters, right? And you know, assuming it wasn't Oswald alone, which we don't think it was Oswald alone for all the reasons we've discussed at length in various forums. But once you decide that, it really does matter who it was because if it's any host of any combination of government actors, then you may not be living in the society that you think you're living in. And the other thing I would say, just to sort of speak out of turn a little bit here. I'll talk on some things that I haven't covered in depth, but I'm still a person. I know some stuff that I haven't done a podcast about yet, but it's not just the only things. But you know, this case you can draw a line from the folks who killed JFK, or let's just say the folks who were forget about whether or not they killed JFK. Obviously, it matters if they did or didn't. But everybody at JM Wave Station, Ted Shackley and those guys, those guys didn't just stop in 1963. Like things kept rolling. Those Ted Shackley is intimately involved in Iran Contra, and Dick Cheney edited the final report of the Church Committee. So the point is, there are bridges to the past that still exist today, and there are people who carried the torch of potentially the bad guys. So that's why it matters.
well, it matters to me too because, and you made a really good point because I have been doing a lot of studying on Alan Dulles as of late, and I think that he is highly responsible for a lot what happened on November 22nd. It's just my opinion. I believe, did he do the planning all by himself? Did he coordinate everything? No, of course not. But he was a man that had his hands in the cookie jar in several things prior to that, along with his brother. That goes all the way back to World War II. Now, hypothetically, do I know that for a fact? Go ahead.
Treaty. I was going to say they wrote the reparations provision at the Treaty of Versailles after World War
Right.
One.
Right.
The Dulles brothers.
And what's interesting to me is that the CIA has always had their hands on, if a country was about to get some sort of like rebellion, right? And not to say Lumumba was he was a rebel, but for his own country. I mean, Congo. You got to understand that. I mean, the oppression there was unreal, and I'm sure you do. Yeah, and nationalist rather. And for me, I just the fact that Dulles. I mean, you know what happened with the Fruit Group down in South America. I mean, he had his hands in that, and that was just unbelievable what he did to that South American president. Please forgive me, I forgot the name of that his name, but my point is the pattern, like you mentioned, up to Shackley, and then you mentioned other characters past. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on and on, and unfortunately, I think it was at its really the domino started to fall when Kennedy passed away. So yeah, it just when I get back to Alan Dulles, it's just interesting. I want to get your thoughts on David Talbot's perspective on who Alan Dulles was, because to me it actually does align with what I believe how it happened.
Yeah, it's right here, the Devil's Chessboard. Um, and yeah, I read the Devil's Chessboard probably. I think that was the last JFK assassination book I read before I started outlining. So I went back, and when I knew I was going to do a podcast, I reread all the books and started outlining them, so I could go back and have, this guy here, here's a point, here's a counterpoint, where am I getting my source from, whatever. So I need to revisit it. A lot of it's not top of mind, but the biggest thing that jumps out at me about Alan Dulles is the thing about his diary saying he was at the farm the weekend of the assassination. That's I've never heard anyone give an explanation for that. Um, and some of the things he would do, he would kind of go around the country and talk to colleges, and he was all upset that everybody hated him and thought there was a conspiracy. Like it really like hurt his feelings. It was kind of funny, even though like he was kind of a jerk about it. But I want to say there's a recording of one of these debates. And I don't know if there's actually audio from it or it was just a transcript, but those enlightening. So I'm really looking, knowing everything I know now, because if you don't know a ton about the case, you just know a few things here and there, and then you go read Devil's Chessboard, you're like, oh my, your head's swimming with all this stuff because you don't have anything to connect it to. But now that I've done all this stuff and I know all these names, and I've kind of got my head around like the general layout of the mafia, for example, which was very amorphous to me before this, um, it I think it's gonna be much more valuable. So to answer your question, I think David Talbot's awesome. There's one thing that he got wrong in the Devil's Chessboard, which I came across during LBJ, and that's just that he had said that Dulles met with LBJ in the like August of 1963, but at LBJ's ranch, which was kind of it'd be like a random visit. It's like it doesn't prove anything, but it's like, aha, what's going on here? This is out of the ordinary. He's not CIA director anymore. Well, it turns out some newspaper uh, did a story about Lady Bird as a you know what a party host and how she throws these great parties. And in that story, it was a syndicated story. It was sent to a lot of papers. They used a photograph of Dulles visiting the ranch, which was taken in 1961. So Talbot took that photo, published in 1963, and it's Dulles and LBJ at the ranch. And he went, "Oh, he must have visited on this date, August '63." But so it's like I'm kind of pointing out the one thing he got wrong because that's the thing that's top of mind for me that I've done most recently. But David Talbot's awesome, and highly recommend Devil's Chessboard. Also, Brothers is another book that he wrote that's really
Okay, Matt. So before we end the show today, I want you to cover your show specifically, and your mission about your show. It's fascinating. It's one of the best things I've watched on YouTube. It's phenomenal. And your attention to detail and everything that you do covering the assassination and the outer layers of it is just absolutely phenomenal. So just want to give you props on that.
sure. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. When I started the podcast, really the reason I did is because I read all these books, and I kind of I had been doing this for since 2000 or so. Was when I first started reading JFK assassination books, but I kind of stopped, and then I got serious again in like 2019 or so, and I started to realize, like, hey, this is pretty obvious. There was a conspiracy. Like, were we gonna do something, or are we just gonna sit here and take it? You know what I mean? And then I went to Facebook to try to find some like-minded people, and that's when I discovered, wait a minute, there's a lot of people that are certain that Oswald acted alone, and they have citations, and they're ready to go. This is like, wow, this is actually still a disputed issue. So then I was thinking, there's got to be a podcast out there that just tries to compare the arguments and tries to just be like, very, fact based. And the only podcast that I was aware of at that time was the Lone Gunman podcast, and that was great. And I've since gotten to know Rob Clark and Joe Borelli too, and I think what they do is great. I think there's a lot of room in the JFK assassination research ecosystem for different things. But what they were doing is not what I had in mind to do, because their whole thing is, and they do a lot of original research. And one of the most interesting pieces of evidence that I've become aware of, I learned from those guys. But the John T. Martin film, yeah, yeah. But I'll come back to that. It's fun. But no. So anyway, we're talking about the podcast and legal. How does legal work in it? So the I guess the way that would come in is two things. Citations have to be there for every proposition of fact. So if I'm saying something, it doesn't, just because I have a citation doesn't mean it's magically true, but it does mean that that I'm not just making this up. I'm saying this person said it. I got it here, or this document said it, or whatever. So that's one part of it, and then probably the way that it presents itself in the show, hopefully when I'm doing it right, is uh, there's the point, and a lot of times I'll start with, like, what's the official story, right? There's the point, and then there's the counterpoint, and then there's the counterpoint to the counterpoint, and then sometimes there's a counter to that, right? So that's probably where the legal comes in, is that I get down in the weeds on, well, they say this, but then they say this about that, but then these people say this about that, and it's just kind of like, aha, wait, it's like a little ping pong game. um and I do kind of put my thumb on the scale and kind of say, like, well, look, here's what I think, but that's not to say people can't disagree, on a given issue. And a lot of times I'll go, I don't know, because as you guys know, there's so many things in this case where it's either speculative no matter what, because there's not good enough evidence, or it's very, very conflicting evidence. Okay. Uh, so what you kind of have to do, or what I do on a lot of issues, is I go, I truly don't know about that. We'll come back to it. But then the ones that you do know for sure, those can later come back to inform the ones that you didn't know about, right? Because you'll kind of be like, well, we know this is this, so here's the possibilities for this thing I don't know. It's got to be this or this, right? So, but yeah, that's the goal, is to just make it so that you're relaying arguments. And look, I know in season one I did a pretty good job of that. In season two, I did an okay job of that. It's harder in season three, because there's not a lot of counter arguments on some of these super deep points, because they haven't even gotten to them a lot of times. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, it's I'm having fun. I've learned a lot about the mafia, so that's been good. Uh, I'll say another reason I did this is because I want to find out what happened. I want to, like, I truly, just like everybody else, I want to know what happened. And I don't think I would have had the discipline to go down this road, like, as an academic pursuit, if I didn't hold myself accountable in some way, like with a timeline, and I didn't also make it fun. And that's kind of what the music part of it's about for me.
It's really impressive that I'm assuming you and a producer produce this program, and I'm just fascinated. I mean, it really goes into detail with what you explore and all the series that you create. Um, what is the workload between you and your producer specifically?
Well, it's not even another person. The other person is strictly handling audio stuff. So he's in like a popular rock band, OAR. Like they play it for like 10,000 people in every city. And not every city. Some cities are smaller. I'm looking at you, Cedar Rapids. But anyway, but so the process is I record at his house with his super pro gear, and he gets me all set, and he pours me my favorite whiskey. I've got the whiskey, the water, and the Red Bull all on the same table, and then we record it, and I do like a lot of different takes and different versions, and then he'll throw it together and send it to me, and then I put the music in, and then I send it back to him, and then he'll add a guitar here or there, and then he just fine tunes it and takes out all my chubby guy noises, all that. Sometimes he doesn't get all of them, but yeah. So he helps a lot in that. I couldn't do it. It wouldn't sound as good without him. But I mean, in terms of like the writing and stuff, and even the music, like that's all me. And it's about 25 hours a week is what I spend about 25 hours a week on the podcast all in, and then and yeah, I don't I stay up late and wake up early. I'm in a season of life where I'm pedal to the metal right now, unfortunately.
But yeah, we'll look forward to catching up with you down at Lancer, and we're gonna keep plugging your show because I mean you are phenomenal and we love it. And just want to make a quick mention too. I think it is the ultimate compliment that Jeff Crudell gave you such great praise. I was so thrilled for you when Jeff was like, you are the next podcast that I really believe in and I think is doing great things. So I just wanted to say that to you, Matt, because I mean, like, you really are making an impact in this community, and we really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys, and thank you for the kind words, and thanks for your efforts. And this is definitely the podcast that I've been on that I've learned the most. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys the next go around, and the truth is out there.